friends, to episode 4 of my Duke and I. Hello, Anita.
Hello, Denise, and welcome to all our listeners. We appreciate your comments. Thanks for listening. Denise, what are we discussing today?
Today we're going to be discussing India's 100-year commemoration massacre at Jallianwala Bagh, Prince Harry's visit to a youth center that provides young people with a place that they can channel their energy in a positive way, Harry and Meghan's decision to keep their baby's birth private.
Okay, so we're going to start off with the massacre at Jallianwala Bagh. On April 13th, 1919, was the day that this massacre took place. On the day of the massacre, thousands of people were gathered at Jallianwala Bagh to peacefully protest colonial rules such as the ban on public assemblies. They were also protesting the arrest of two nationalist leaders and the suspension of civil liberties. For example, political prisoners were being tried without a jury. As a result of that gathering to protest this injustice that was imposed by the United Kingdom, soldiers were given the order by British General Reginald Dyer to open fire on the crowd of protesters. So, Denise, I know you have an excellent knowledge of history. So, can you shed some light on what precipitated these unfair rules and acts imposed by the United Kingdom and the climate of India during this era?
One of the things that happened back then, as history records, not only did the British invade India and colonize India, but they were also taking advantage of the country's economy. For example, India produced a lot of cotton. Cotton is what they use for all of their garments. What the British did, they realized that there was money to be made in cotton, and so they would have the Indian workers pick the cotton, they would export it to Britain, they would process it, and then they would re-import it into India and charge the people 100 times more for this material, for the processed material. Now, many of the people of India didn't make too much money, and so here it is, they picked the cotton, they packed it, they shipped it to England, and then they had to now pay 100 times more, oftentimes more than what they were making for a year, to buy the cloth to make garments to clothe themselves and their family. So that was one of the things that people really started to get upset about, because it was causing a lot of unnecessary stress in families, because they now had to choose between eating and putting clothes on their back. The second thing was the salt. India also produced a lot of salt. This salt again was being shipped over to the United Kingdom to be processed, and then it was imported back into India, and they were now charging them a salt tax. Now, if you're familiar with Indian cuisine, you know that salt is used to enhance the flavor of whatever they cook. And so imagine having to now find money to pay for a salt tax just to put salt in your food to make it flavorful. Well, a few of the activists, I think Mahatma Gandhi was one of them, that said, nope, we do not need to pay a salt tax. We can produce our own salt. And so they decided that if a family could not produce their own salt, then they need to eat their food unsalted. As a result of this, many families started processing their own salt. Well, now the British realized that the Indians were not going to tolerate what they were doing, and the Indians were getting angrier by the day. And so, as a result of that, they were being monitored. They were being stopped from gathering in large groups in different places. Basically, no public gathering were allowed. Well, the more that they tried to put this sort of a restraint on them, the angrier the people got and the more determined the people became to take their own rights, civil rights, back into their own hands. And so at one of these gatherings, a fight broke out, and several British people were killed as a result of that. Well, this angered the British soldier that was there in command, and he decided that the next time the people of India gathered in the square, he was going to block the entrances that they couldn't escape, and he would open fire on them. And so, as you mentioned before, on that date of April 13th, in 1919, a gathering took place between what was a wall fence. All the entrances were sealed off by British soldiers, and an order was given by the British general. The British general at the time was Reginald Dyer. He ordered his soldiers to fire into the crowd, a crowd of men, women, boys, girls, babies, and they just kept on shooting and shooting and shooting till hundreds, as it thousands of people, innocent people, were killed, massacred that day because of that.
So, Denise, we know that former Prime Minister David Cameron visited that site, and one thing that he said was it was deeply shameful that this occurred. Now, on the 100-year remembrance of that massacre, which took place recently, Prime Minister Theresa May said, "We deeply regret what happened and the suffering caused," as well as the current relationship between India and the United Kingdom was one of collaboration, she said, partnership, prosperity, and security. So that's what she said. But she did not apologize for the massacre, which the people of India has been asking for a long time. Why do you think she has not apologized for this atrocity?
Well, I think one of the reasons why she didn't apologize, I'm guessing they feel if they apologize for this, then they would have to apologize for so much more. They would have to apologize to many of the countries that they exploited back in the days when they colonized these different countries. And so also she could have felt that it would be a sign of weakness to apologize for the past crimes of the country. But whatever their theory is on this, I think the people of India are becoming angry. In fact, I have a really good friend that's from India, and she is very much in touch with India. She knows a lot of people that are in the political arena in India, and she said the people there are quite angry. They're angry to the point where they are contemplating leaving the Commonwealth. And I think India could very well do that because currently they're not really dependent on Britain for anything. They also have the largest population of the Commonwealth countries, of the 53 Commonwealth countries. They are also economically very strong. They said by the end of 2019, they would have surpassed Britain's economy. They'll have the fifth largest economy in the world. So the bottom line is, it would be in the UK's best interest to offer an apology, because at the end of the day, when and if Britain leaves the EU, they're going to need India
Mm-hmm.
because with Brexit comes a lot of consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, by the looks of things, if they walk away without any deal, India, Africa, the Caribbean countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, they're all looking to these countries to
Mm-hmm.
play a vital role in maintaining and sustaining the United Kingdom's economy. And so I think it would be in their best interest to be at peace with these countries and to acknowledge what happened, even though it was, over a century ago, yet the stories are passed from one generation to the other. And in the current climate that the world is in today, with a lot of racial and political unrest, I think it would be a wise thing
Mm-hmm.
for the United Kingdom to apologize to the countries that it colonized in the past.
Well, it's left to be seen what they're going to do eventually because, well, several people in the UK that had prominent political positions always look at it as a terrible thing that happened, but it seems like they all fell short of saying, we're sorry for what happened. And as you
Mm-hmm.
said, it is probably in their best interest
Yeah.
to go ahead and make amends and we shall see what happens.
Yes, time will
Mhm.
definitely tell because, it was because of, going into the people's country and exploitation
Mhm.
that caused these things to happen. And so now I think it's time that the United Kingdom begin to self reflect and take a good look at history and try to make some things that were wrong, make them right. And
Mhm.
a simple apology, I think,
Mhm.
is in order.
Yes. So, Denise, let's talk about Prince Harry's visit to the Future Youth Zone Center that provides young people opportunities to channel their energy in a productive way. This is precisely what Prince Harry was discussing the other day at a gathering where various members of the community contributed in that gathering. So it's really awesome that Harry was able to participate in the opening of that center because what that center does is to provide an outlet where young people can go to as opposed to being in the streets where they can be encouraged to join gangs or they themselves can get injured by being on the street. So, Dennis, can you tell us a little bit more about that roundtable discussion that Harry participated in with members of various communities in the United Kingdom?
Yes, earlier this year, Prince Harry and his father, Prince Charles, had a discussion with several young people from across the area to discuss some of the reasons why there were knife crimes, why that seemed to be on the rise. And during this discussion, there was a lot of listening, and the different members that showed up to this meeting told the prince and his father that a big part of what they were dealing with knife crimes, some of it was from domestic abuse in the home and even teenage pregnancies. A lot of the young people really had nothing to do when they got out of school. There was no safe place for them to gather to get off the streets, and oftentimes, as the old saying goes, idle minds, the devil find work for idle minds. And so these kids, from different backgrounds tend to get into a lot of trouble when they have nothing productive to do or to channel their energy. As a result of that, the knife crime in the UK seemed to be on the rise. And incidentally, it was also reported that because of lack of funds, about 11 of these future youth zones were closed. And so Prince Charles was really concerned that at a time when the crime seemed to be going up, the city was not able to provide the funds needed to keep these centers open. So it's really nice that this particular center that had a lot of contributors from, I think, different corporations were able to fund this center, and as a result, Prince Harry was able to go there and open it up. Incidentally, back in the early part of the year, Duchess Meghan had actually gone to one of these youth centers in Birkenhead. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I do.
Anita? Yes. They they also have a center in Birkenhead, and Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan was able to go there and to see firsthand what these centers were doing and how it was helping to reduce knife crime in the areas, in the different areas or region of the country.
Yes. So you said knife crimes, and to our listeners over here in the United States, we're more familiar with gun violence. Um, in Britain, they're more stringent about guns as opposed to the United States. So in Britain, young people are using knives as weapons to inflict injury on each other, as opposed to the United States, where it would be more gun violence. So we have Eli here, who's 22, and I believe he may be able to shed some light on this problem. So, Eli, hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
So, Eli, what do you believe as a young person is the problem, and what do you also believe is the solution that we can use as a society, or the folks in England, and even here in the United States, to combat this type of violence? We heard some from Denise already, but as a young person, let's hear your perspective on what you feel is the cause and probably the solution.
Thank you. Just to highlight what Denise actually started off with, she's 100% right when she talks about idleness being a primary issue with violence and other issues that she discussed earlier. It's kind of obvious that if children or if teenagers or young adults don't have something to do, then they'll find something to do. Not necessarily the best thing to do, of course, but it will be something nevertheless. But in my personal opinion, in addition to idleness, it's also environment. So I was born and raised in the Bronx, and I was able to witness firsthand what an environment in an inner city was like. Um, for the most part, my parents made sure that I didn't really get too much exposure with my immediate neighborhood because they didn't particularly care for the neighborhood's demographic, and also for safety was an issue where I lived. But from what I was able to experience, a lot of kids spent their time around people that were headed nowhere. And consequently, if we're looking at it from the perspective that kids need role models and they need people to look up to for direction as to where they should go, um, if children spend excessive amounts of time around people like this, then it's only obvious that they would probably head in that direction as well. Um, I would also like to point out that a lot of the centers that were in our area, they were expensive. They weren't really accessible to all children, and consequently, children kind of had to kind of had to like parents of these children who could see that their environment wasn't necessarily the best and wanted to get them into better environments would try to fight and get them into it. Not always successful, and most often those kids would end up as other statistics. If I were to if I may, I'd also like to talk about it from a cultural perspective as well. The way the culture is currently, at least in American culture, I can't really speak on the culture in the United Kingdom because I wouldn't know it well enough to do so. But American culture doesn't cultivate an environment where it's cool or it's perceived as the right thing to do to belong to a crowd that's going somewhere, especially minority communities. Too often, intelligence and academia and merit are viewed as things that aren't don't exactly align with the interests of the in crowd, and consequently, it becomes a fight to persuade children to pursue things in the best of their academic interest when everyone else is kind of speaking out against it.
I think it's commendable that Prince Harry and his father are actually amplifying the voices of these young people, and as a result of that, corporations are paying attention and they're actually donating money to create these safe zones. They call them future youth zones. That in fact, one of the things that they also do, they encourage the young people to help in the design of these youth zone. So it's not just a bunch of adults going in and saying, we're going to create this for you. The young people are actually asked for their opinions, and when these zones are designed, they're actually helping with the design so that they can have a sense of pride in knowing that they actually helped to build this place. And because of that, it's encouraging more and more young people to actually go in and take advantage of these facilities where they can build friendship and have a sense of community and even a sense of family. So hopefully they will continue to raise enough funds so that they can have these future youth zones all across the United Kingdom. And perhaps our country, the United States, could learn something from that or use the template to create facilities like that in this country.
Yes, it's nice that they're giving them a choice and sort of like an ownership. And when kids have a part or a choice or say in something, there's more pride in it, and they feel more encouraged to participate or even to spread the word around because they feel there's some ownership, they're invested in it. So that's really good. And then they could be, when they're there, they could say, you know what, this is my work. I did this,
Absolutely.
and, feel proud of the accomplishment. So thank you. Thank you, Eli.
Problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eli, and best wishes to you in all your endeavors.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Mhm.
Yeah, Anita, the long awaited press release came from Buckingham Palace
Mhm.
last week that Harry and Meghan decided to make their baby's birth private.
Mhm.
I really commend them on that decision because the Lindo wing would have been a complete nightmare with all of the paparazzi waiting out there to snap the first baby pictures. So Diana was the one that started the Lindo wing, which I'm sure she would regret today. The expectation that a woman several hours after giving birth would have to step out in front of hundreds of clicking camera with her newborn, that was such a unrealistic expectation. I don't know for you, Anita, but I
Mhm.
know for myself,
Mhm.
there's no way I would have been able to stand before a camera and look like a runway model
Mhm.
shortly after I gave birth to my child.
Mhm.
It's just it's just number one, so much pressure
Mhm.
on a woman, and number two, you're still in excruciating pain after. For some women, it could be several hours. For some women, it's days of hard labor to
Mhm.
bring a child into the world.
Mhm.
And the British public actually got spoiled. But even more so, the paparazzi, I think they're somewhat inhumane and sadistic, for lack of a better term, to have such an expectation of a woman standing before them so they could click away and exploit her and her newborn baby, exploit their picture to make money. I think that is like nothing that I've ever heard of or seen before. And so, yes, I'm very, very happy, as many fans are, that Harry and Meghan made that decision to enjoy the birth of their child and to get, some time to bond with the baby, as well as to introduce other family members to the baby before they presented their child to the world.
I'm very happy too as well that Meghan and Harry made that decision, and I am not surprised that that decision was made because as a feminist, Meghan takes all women in all different walks of life into consideration. To have a woman after giving birth parading her child in the public is not something that Meghan would advocate, and neither would she model that behavior. So I'm extremely happy that that decision was made, and giving birth to a child is a private matter. And
Absolutely.
yes, it's a private matter, and everybody have a different experience to
Yes.
delivering a child. So that decision being made, I think a lot of women around the world applaud Meghan and Harry for deciding on that. Now, the people that I could see benefiting from Meghan coming out there and facing the world with all these flashing cameras in front of her are the British press. And they're like really going nuts about not having that photo so they could parade on their front pages and making money on baby Sussex. And so I'm just appreciative that Meghan took all women across the world into consideration in that decision.
Yeah, I find, for lack of a better term, that the British media is somewhat barbaric, you know, because the expectation that they place on women, they almost treat them as if they're subhuman.
Hmm.
Imagine
Like
the
castles.
outcry in America if, say, the first lady, gave birth, and several hours after birth, she had to stand before hundreds of paparazzi and parade her child and give a big smile as if nothing happened. Can you imagine the outcry? So I thought the British people were a little bit more um, civilized, but now I'm beginning to realize that they're stuck in the dark ages in more ways than we could ever imagine, because the kind of expectation that they place on the royal family is supposed to be head of the country, and I think the unrealistic expectation that they place on this family, it's just like nothing that we could ever imagine.
Yes. It's literally
You know?
selfish and unrealistic.
Yes, yes.
And
And
mhm,
they're treating the royal family as if they're not human,
mhm. Yes.
just to know, and it's all done just so that they can make money.
Yes, very much so. And I'm happy that when the world sees Harry and Meghan's child, everybody else will be able to see it, the child at the same time, and no one will have an exclusive right to any photos. When whoever out in England sees it, we're all seeing it at the same time, so there's no money to be gained. And when you think about the abuse that Meghan received from that British press,
Yes.
it makes me even happier that they will
Oh, yes.
get zero photos when baby Sussex arrive. And the best thing that Meghan and Harry can do is bond with their child, and when they're ready, and nobody should force anybody to present their child to the world. It sounds so stupid. Present
It
your
it
child to the
it is
world.
stupid. Yeah, it is stupid, and And I think, the British press, most of their articles and their RRs, they're the first to point out that Harry's sixth in line to the
Mhm.
throne, you know, and so therefore his family is not relevant. So if they're not relevant,
Mhm.
why are you trying to put this kind of pressure on
Mhm.
them?
Mhm.
Why are they trying to put this kind of pressure? And why are they so angry
Mhm.
that this husband and wife
Mhm.
would want to have their child in private like all other families
Mhm.
do? I think that's what most families do. And now here it is, Harry and Meghan are being pressured by the British paparazzi
Mhm.
to not only did they want them to publicly announce where they were going to give birth,
Mhm.
but also right after birth present the child
Mhm.
to the world.
Every time you say present the child to the world, I'm like, on are we living in this modern time? It just sounds so
Yeah,
weird to me. You know?
yeah, it's unrealistic. It's just like, I mean, you know, not being blasphemous or anything like that.
Mhm.
Yes, it is true that baby Sussex's birth is probably the most anticipated birth since
Mhm.
Jesus came into the world,
Mhm.
because everyone was searching for where's this baby that's going to be born
Mhm.
2,000 years ago,
Mhm.
and here it is.
Mhm.
You have a bunch of reporters that are doing practically the same thing. I'm
Mhm.
sure they've stalked every hospital
Mhm.
between London and Windsor to find out where this baby will be born.
Mhm.
And now, without any facts or anything, they're speculating, oh, it's going to be a home birth.
Mhm.
And that's making them very angry
Mhm. Wow.
because they're not going to bear witness to the birth of this child. And it really, I mean, it's laughable, but it's also very disgraceful that in
Mhm.
this time and age,
Mhm.
the British press would think they have this kind of rights
Mhm.
to someone else's child
Or somebody
and
else's
to
body.
someone else's life. Yeah, I mean, something as intimate as having a child,
Mhm.
they think it should become public knowledge. I mean, most people wouldn't even watch their cat or their dog give
Mhm.
birth, let
Mhm.
alone a human. You want to
Mhm.
know everything, all the details, all of that. It's just the sickest thing I've ever heard,
I know.
for lack of a better term.
Yes.
But yeah, to make it, so I am extremely, extremely happy
Mhm.
that Harry and Meghan decided to do things their way.
Exactly, and they should, because at the end of the day, it's all about money. It's all about getting that
Yeah.
photo so that we can sell. And I feel like they
Mm.
should not make a dime off of
They should
Harry
not.
and Meghan for how they've been treated by the
Yeah.
British press. And a woman has a right
Yeah.
to decide what she does with her body. One, how
Yeah.
she gives birth, where she gives birth, and how and when she decides or who she decides to show her child to.
Yes.
So it
Yeah.
makes absolutely no sense to me that after you've been so vile, what is the interest? I don't get it other than to make money. That's the only
Yeah.
interest. They're not interested in Megan. They try to tear her down. So you tell me what is the interest. It's nothing more than the bottom line, which is money.
Yeah. These people are just really vile. And like I said, they have really exposed themselves to the world,
Mhm.
because I think up until now, the world did not realize, number one, how racist certain sector of the British population still
Mhm.
is, and number two, that they do not value the rights of women. Women are
Mhm.
still treated like commodities
Mhm.
over there. The expectation that they put on women, it's almost as if they're subhuman,
Mhm.
because if a man was capable of giving birth, I can't imagine. that these same paparazzi would want that man coming out a few hours later so that they could take pictures. So I think maybe it's time that the women of the United Kingdom start demanding more respect from the men over there, because it's evident that sexism is still alive and well, and they think women are nothing but objects. They don't see women as beings with feelings and to be cherished and taken, care. Well, not even so much taken care of, but to be treated as equal with dignity and respect.
That's right. And having the
Yeah.
ability to make a decision and that decision being respected.
Right, right. And so, I have to say, God rest Princess Diana's soul, because she raised her son right, especially Prince Harry, because Prince Harry is everything that every mother who have a son would like their son to be as a husband. You know, he is demonstrated and given example to old men and young men what a husband should be, the way he should cherish and treat his wife. In our Christian religion, it says that a man should love his wife as Christ loved the church. Cherish that wife to the point where he would lay his life down for her if he needed to. And I think when you look at the relationship between Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan, you have a clear vision of the biblical teachings. If you're not experiencing that in your own marriage, or if you are, it's a wonderful thing. But for those people that are not yet married, he's a good example of what a husband ought to be, what a relationship should be between a husband and wife. And for that, I commend him, and I commend Meghan for standing her ground and for not allowing the British people to put this unrealistic pressure and expectation on her, for the self-respect and the self-dignity that now women throughout the world will be able to say, you know what, my body, my choice, and they'll be able to stand up for themselves.
Well, Meghan is a very, very intelligent woman, and I don't think anybody, whether it's the British press or the Queen of England, can convince Meghan to do anything that she does not believe in. So I never expected her to be parading herself after giving birth, and just like everybody else, we'll just have to wait for the pictures. And when did they say that we were going to be able to get a photo, or how are we going to be able to see baby Sussex?
Well, according to the press release, several days after the baby's born, there will be the taking of pictures in front of Windsor Castle, or on the grounds of Windsor Castle. I believe the Associated Press will be invited to the grounds of Windsor Castle. If I recall correctly, it will be one photographer, one reporter, and one camera person. They're going to be the only ones allowed. Now, the rest of the press corps will have to wait out in the long walk. Remember where all the people gathered to see Harry and Meghan when they got married? Well, that's called the Long Walk of Windsor. So that's where the press, the rest of the world press,
I hope
will
the UK press gets a spot that is really further along the lines.
Oh, me too, me too. And what I was thinking, I hope they charge them triple the amount. I hope the AP press charged them triple the amount to get the feed. Yes, I hope the fees for the British press is triple that of everybody else's, to be able to get that feed, to broadcast the baby's picture, name, and everything else that will come on that day.
Yes.
Because Lord knows, like you said, they don't deserve to get a picture of the baby until that baby becomes an adult, 18 years old. If that my child, I would not let them get any pictures. My child would be 18 and have to give permission, and I would make sure I train my child to say no.
Yes, definitely, they're not deserving,
Nope.
given the way that they have treated that child's mother and harassed her, and they found all types of ways when they couldn't directly do it. They went through the back door or went through somebody else to do it. Even in her own home at Kensington Palace, they found a way. They really are not deserving of any photos.
No.
So now, so baby Sussex is going to be coming to Frogmore Cottage. Isn't that wonderful? Let's tell our listeners around the world the history that's behind Meghan and Harry at Windsor in general.
Well, Windsor Castle, or the grounds of Windsor, Windsor Estate, is actually the place where, when Harry and Meghan were dating, that was the place that they could go to have picnics. They could go for long walks. They could enjoy the scenery and have the privacy that they needed to develop their relationship. The grounds of Windsor is quite a large estate, I think more than 35 acres. So they were able to create a lot of history on that property, a lot of romance on that property. That's where they took their engagement picture. They took the pictures on the steps of Frogmore House. When they got married at Windsor Chapel. When they had the first reception directly after the wedding, it was at the banquet room, one of the banquet rooms at Windsor Chapel. Later on in the evening, when they had their evening reception, it was at Frogmore House. Their wedding photographs was actually taken between the steps of the chapel, Frogmore House, and also Windsor Castle. The first night, I have to say, now I'm going to get really bad, when their marriage was consummated, it was there at Windsor Castle. So Windsor Castle has a lot of beautiful memories, memories that someday they'll be able to sit down and they'll be able to tell baby Sussex about their romance. And also, I don't know if you know this, but Harry and his grandparents are very, very close. Both the Queen and Prince Philip are very close to Harry. As a child, Harry spent a lot of times there at Windsor. He went to school in the area, and he would go after school, especially after his mother died. That's where he found solace. After school, run over to his grandmother's house, his grandmother, the Queen, and that's where he would, as a young boy, 12, right through his early teens, he would go and have tea with her, talk to her, and I'm sure lots of conversations with his grandfather. So the bond between his grandparents and himself, I'm sure, got even closer after the death of his mother. So Windsor is a very, very special place to Harry too, and I can only imagine the fun he had showing Meghan every inch of that property and giving her the history of the property too.
And soon to be baby Sussex.
Soon to be baby Sussex, that history will be passed on to their beautiful little baby. And
Mhm.
That's going to be amazing.
So, I'm thinking on our next episode, you will be reporting from Windsor.
Yes, I will. I will be there, and I'm
Mhm.
looking forward to it. I'm hoping that by the time I get there,
Mhm.
baby Sussex
Mhm.
will be here. I'm
Mhm.
hoping that the announcement will not be made while I'm on the plane in flight. Oh, yes, I'm really hoping.
Yes.
But yes, I will be in London,
Mhm.
and I hope I'll be able to meet some exciting people because,
Mhm.
yes, I will be making my way over to Windsor.
Yes. And
And
you said you're going to that pub. What is the
yes,
name of the pub? The Harry pub? What?
yeah, Prince Harry's pub. I'll be sampling the Prince Harry's beer. Well, I'm vegetarian, but my husband,
Mhm.
he's a meat eater,
Mhm.
so I'll get him to do the Prince Harry burger and tell us what it's like.
And hopefully you'll be able to speak to the locals there, and we'll be able to hear what they have to say, and I think it's gonna be fun. Mhm.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited because you know what?
Mhm.
When they got married, I
Mhm.
really wanted to go over
Mhm.
for the wedding,
Mhm.
but because my child was in school,
Mhm.
I did not have the heart to leave her behind
Mhm.
to go over, and she was actually doing exams during the
Mhm.
week of the wedding.
Mhm.
So I am really happy that even though I didn't make the wedding in person,
Mhm.
now I'll be there, if not close to the birth, if not for the birth, at
Mhm.
least, soon after the birth,
Yes,
to be able to partake in the excitement. And if
exactly.
I run into any of those reporters, I will definitely let them know how I feel about them.
I sure you will. Yes. So, guys, if you have any questions, or comments, or you would like us to, or any topic that you would like us to discuss, please let us know. You could go to my Duke and I on Twitter and leave us a comment, or you could go to my Duke and I website at www.mydukeandI.com and also leave a comment there. Thanks for listening.
As on that note, I would like to say adieu until we meet again next week, hopefully. I look forward to reporting live from Windsor Castle. So thank you, listeners. Thank you.
Mhm.
Adieu until we meet again.
Mhm.